very honored to have him. And yes, we're also honored to have you, because we want you to tell us, how can we achieve real peace? Is this an individual responsibility? Should you be asking, what can I do to be peaceful so that I can provide peace or be a peace champion to my country that needs it so badly? So welcome again to our second session of the Yes We Can. I'm your host, Alex Toom, and the guest from now is Andrew Ndolo. It's good to see you, my brother. How are you feeling?
Always a pleasure.
Okay, wonderful. Now, let's go straight up to what we've been discussing about peace issues.
Yes.
Why are we where we are?
Yes.
Because just yesterday we read in the papers that
Yes.
the Ndolo community
Yes.
and the El Chamus,
Yes.
who are interrelated,
Yes.
they are they are small communities
Yes.
in the Kalenjin community in Baringo County, to be exact,
Yes.
and they killed one another
Yes.
because of issues of pastures and issues of water and stuff like that.
Yes.
How does leadership in this country, because the session that we have now is about how leadership can bring peace.
Yes.
How does leadership bring peace? Because people can fight. It doesn't even have to be the tribe.
Yes.
Two brothers can even fight.
True.
So how does leadership then
Yes.
bring peace?
Yes. Well, it depends on how you look at it. And as I was listening to the first half of the show, one of the strongest pillars to achieving peace within a society is the family unit.
Right.
And where you find there is conflict, there is usually a failing at the leadership level in terms of example.
Okay.
One of the biggest issues we've had as a nation has been the examples that have been given out at the leadership level. If you go back even before independence,
Right.
you find issues that were brought about as a result of poor examples.
Okay.
We had people who were in the fight for independence and who seemed to be left by the wayside,
Okay.
by the leadership that took over. We had the scenarios where we had appointments that were purely based on tribal balance, not on competence or even on moral values.
Okay.
One of the biggest things as a nation we need to recognize is that we are coming from a past that to a certain extent has not united us, but has separated us along tribal lines to benefit political agenda.
Was the 2007 chaos, was it something that was inevitable because of our poor foundation?
Yes.
Was that a roof, was that a house
Yes.
collapsing
Yes.
due to the fact that it couldn't carry its weight because of its foundational problem?
Yes, it was. It was a result of issues. And we make the mistake of going back to 1992 and stopping there. And that is not where the problem, specifically in the rift, began. These are problems that started before independence and were then surmounted by the leadership after 64.
So they are historical.
By not adjusting it. Which is why when they talk about historical injustices, what we need to come up with, and this, I'm happy that you are talking about the Wazalendo outfit.
Right.
Some of the agendas that Wazalendo is rolling out will be educative. People need to know, where do we come from? What are the issues in Kuresoi?
Okay.
What are the issues in Baringo? What happened 40 years ago, 50 years ago? How do we end up where we are today?
Right.
The Coast Province is a boiling pot in terms of peace.
Yeah, you now have the Mombasa Republican Council
Precisely.
saying Mombasa, Pwani, sio Kenya.
Exactly. So you must ask yourself, where did this activity begin? What is the result? And you see, the thing that why I keep talking about parental example is because the people who agitate, even at the rift and at the coast, are usually under 30.
Young people.
So you would imagine they would have no complaints because they don't even understand tribalism.
Right.
To a certain extent, they don't even are not fluent in their own vernacular.
Yeah, because most of them probably grew up in towns.
Precisely.
Or they're even a product of intermarriages.
Precisely. If you listen to Ndeto's point, that the family begins with the father figure and the issue of the man being the head of the family. We have made leadership to be about money. We have imagined that the head of state has to be the wealthiest man in Kenya.
Right.
And he has to be the best businessman in Kenya.
And he has to buy his way up there anyway.
And those are the qualities of a good leader, which is wrong.
Okay.
The qualities of a good leader is a person who is willing to be a father to the nation.
Okay.
A man who is willing to be a leader of a family by example. There is a saying that I was once told by my late father, and he put it in a way that I can't explain because it was partly in vernacular. Okay. Leadership is by example and from in front. You cannot lead from behind.
You can't lead from behind.
That is why when they talk about the father the man being the father of the family, it's not about whether or not he has a master's degree or whether he's the one bringing $1 million shillings. It's that spiritually speaking, he takes responsibility for the decisions that are expected of the father of a family.
So are we talking about a reconnection
Yes.
to our spiritual selves?
Yes.
And a reconnection to ourselves in terms of who we divinely are?
Yes.
Because it looks to me like we really have to understand that a lot of these things are just by God's creation.
Yes.
And none of us, we should actually understand that that's just the way it is.
Yes.
Should there be an end point where we know, okay, as long as Papa says this is wrong,
Yes.
it is wrong.
Yes.
Because every time I hear radios, I listen to radios in the morning, and you can tell that the family values are eroding so fast.
Yes.
What do we do about that? Because we just saw what happened in 2007. We see what is happening in Northeastern. We see what is happening in other countries.
Yes.
And we are always worried
Yes.
that a repeat of 2007
Yes.
could be seen again.
Yes.
So is it time to look at leaders who speak peace and have peace?
Yes.
And how does one behave peaceful?
Yes.
Enough for us to be able to say, that guy is peaceful.
Yes. Well, we look at history, and everybody has a history. There's absolutely nobody presenting themselves for top office today who doesn't have a history. Right. And that is a history that guides us. And that history then is put into line with the family unit. What kind of a father is this man? What kind of a husband is this man? That's where it begins. Okay. Everything else falls into place until you answer those simple questions. Okay. What family values? If we are talking about a politician X who is vying to be a governor, he's vying to be a senator, he's vying to be the CEO of this great nation, what does this person profess? What are we seeing as a father, not as a businessman, not as a lawyer, not as a general, none of those, but as a father. Okay. Because that is where it begins.
So that should be the blueprint.
That should be the blueprint.
I don't know what you think, but our guest is Ndolo on our second session. When we're talking about Yes We Can Peace, Yes We Can Peace. Thank you so much for keeping it here at CAST TV. I'm your host, Alex Tum. The show is Yes We Can, and Yes We Can for Peace. Tell me this, Ndolo. What do you think, if we had a father figure in the State House, do you think that a lot of these problems would be addressed with fatherly love? Yes. With fatherly, I guess I can say, corrective way of doing things? Yes. And would that then translate into, do you think we idolize these politicians so much that we really do what they do, even if it's morally wrong?
Well, you know, we've been put in that situation. To a certain extent, we shouldn't blame Kenyans and whole. I believe, way back from when we got independence, that the Kenyan has been betrayed by the leadership. Okay. You see, when you look at our culture as Africans, and you look at the culture of Asia, and to make a good example that Eddie was talking about, specifically talking about Korea, and the cultures of Asia, the success you see, and the reason that the Asian economies are going to be the superpowers of tomorrow is because they never let go to their cultural values. The position of the elder in the community is very clear. Right. The respect that that elder has to be accorded is very clear. You must remember that the whole structure of leadership, if you follow from Adam and Eve, is about lineage. Everything God's intention was lineage. Okay. It's about this family I'm building, where I'm going to purify my people through the family. So it's a lineage agenda. And this is why, if you listen to one of Eddie's points, and the reason I quote Eddie is because at a spiritual level, Eddie makes a connection to the politics, which for me makes absolute sense when I listen to him, because it's not about religion. It's not about the politics, about the Anglicans and the evangelists. It's about the raw facts. When you have a head of state, he is from a particular community. So if you come down to the bottom, he is a father in his family. Then he's a clan leader. Then he's a tribal leader, and then he's a head of state. There is nothing wrong with identifying with tribe. As long as you recognize that that tribe joins with another and another to make Kenya.
Now, they always, I like that explanation, they always say that the youths have been abused by politicians, and they were abused in the last general election, whether that's true or not. How do we get the youth to actually be peace champions.
Yes.
How can we change? How can we recalibrate
Yes.
their thinking?
Yes.
In your opinion?
Well, we start with what some of the activities that we are doing. And I am certain, without a shadow of a doubt, there are other outfits who are also grappling with the same agendas we're grappling with. What we would like to do is to put a blueprint on the table and say, let us talk family values. If I am a leader and we are holding a demonstration, would I put my 12-year-old son front line with these young men who are going to face with tear gas? If I can't do that, then I shouldn't encourage these 19-year-olds to demonstrate.
Or you shouldn't commit somebody else's child.
When we saw ODM calling for mass action, were their sons in the crowd? If their sons were not in the crowds, then they shouldn't have called for it.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. When we unleashed security organs into populations with live ammunition, were their sons the ones holding the guns? So that if there's retaliation, they are the ones dealing with the brunt of that retaliation.
Right.
That is the fatherly leadership we're talking about.
Okay.
When you look at it from that angle, you then shouldn't have a problem.
Now, is it also an issue? Is it also an issue that is there a don't care attitude that prevails among the leadership, or is it that people are working with? Are these leaders living lives of quiet desperation because they have no peace in themselves?
Well, I suppose if you go back to the spiritual angle, there's a conflict within each and every one of us. And it is not certain the percentages. I'm sure if you posted that to Eddie, he would tell you the actual percentage of evil versus good in each and every one of us.
I would love to know that. Next
Yes.
time, wouldn't you love to know
Yes.
the
Yes.
percentage of good versus evil?
Precisely.
It looks to be like it's all about evil
Yes.
or good. And
Yes.
evil or good. So,
Yes. So
I don't know where you stand, but please keep it right here on CAST TV. 5105 is a SMS number that you can send your comments. So we still have a few remaining moments with Ndolo on issues of peace.
Yes.
God.
Yes, so like I was saying, so there's a certain percentage of evil and good in each and every one of us. There's a turmoil ongoing in each and every one of us. So when
So do we have a civil war in ourselves?
We have a civil war.
Sometimes it's spirit versus flesh and stuff like that. Is
I
that what
believe
you're
there's a quote in the Bible about the flesh.
talking about? Yes, there is.
Yes, being wanting.
Yes, yes.
This is a conflict that is in every single one of us. And this is why, even when we are doing the political show, I keep saying
Yes.
that leadership comes with responsibility.
Right.
And we shouldn't define leadership to just be political leadership. When you are an evangelist and you are the head of the church, that leadership comes with responsibility. As tempted as you might be to make it purely a business,
Now, you should also
you should be doing spiritual work because there's a temptation. Because Kenyans and the human being in general is thirsty for leadership.
You know, you read some of these books on how you can be the best CEO, the best leader, and they emphasize on meditation.
Yes.
Or rather, they emphasize on private time, spending time alone.
Yes.
And people say that when you're meditating,
Yes.
it's actually God talking to you.
Yes.
When you're praying, you're talking to God.
Yes.
Do you think a leader,
Yes.
like for example Barack Obama,
Yes.
do you think the more you are up there in the ranks of leadership,
Yes.
the more you need to have that quiet time alone? And is that the time when you're, because you can be spiritual without being religious?
Yes.
Am I right about that?
You're very right.
Are you saying that a leader should actually find a way in which he can connect to himself
Yes.
and to God through
Yes.
meditation?
Yes.
Because if meditation is when God is talking to you,
Yes.
and prayer is when you're talking to God, then those two things are very important.
Yes.
And maybe that's why some leaders are more successful than others.
It is very, very, very true. And like I said, I'll take you back to the Asian continent where there has been obvious strides economically. The foundation has not been the economics.
No.
It has been the spirituality. Then the spirituality gives birth to the economic growth. You see, where you throw the economic in front, you make one mistake. It is not godly. It is not godly at all. It is driven by profit, profit, profit.
Now, let's go back to issues of the Constitution.
Yes.
Yeah, we promulgated it about a year and some months ago. And you have Chapter 6, a very burning issue.
Yes.
You have people talking about integrity
Yes.
and leadership.
Yes.
How can we then, I mean, do you sense the need for people to be, do we need to go back to the foundation of character, in which case I think that becomes a family value?
Yes.
And does that character help make the leaders that we want to see? Because a character is formed by a habit, right?
Exactly.
So do we need to go back to simple things like What are the habits? The Ushensis are the one of the things that
Yes,
we do.
yes.
Do we need to go back to that?
Yes.
And start from a holistic approach?
Yes.
And probably that will change things from the bottom up.
That is the only way to go. That is the only way to go. If it doesn't begin with a spirituality at the center and then spreading out to whatever we do politically, we will fail as a nation. We got to taste a small dose of what could happen when we lose our way. If we do not recognize that if we don't put God center in everything we do, and I repeat, I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about standing up and saying I'm Catholic and I'm who.
Yes.
That's not it. I'm not saying, like I heard arguments where people would like to demonize the Muslims. Right. That is the wrong journey completely. If we recognize that we are all God's children, then it is in God's wisdom that some of his children are in Islam. It is through him. So the important thing is the spirituality of this nation has to be fine-tuned again. And the only way it's going to happen is when leaders take responsibility.
Why is it that we've lost spirituality? Or why is it that, people just regard themselves as being spiritual when they go to church? Should there be a deeper explanation and a deeper understanding of what it means to be spiritual than just presenting yourself at church? Because you look everywhere on Sunday, every politician wants to be in church, but it doesn't really mean that they are spiritual. Well, they probably take the advantage of the fact that people are just gathered in a church, and it makes room for good campaigning.
I think there was something you said in the first half, selfish leaders. It's as simple as that. The sitting in front in the pulpit is purely because you've got airtime, you're right in front, the cameras are going to catch you. It has nothing to do with God, it has nothing to do with spirituality. When it has anything to do with spirituality, it will not be about whether or not you are caught in camera. It will be that from Monday to Monday, anything you uttered in any forum you were in was purely a spiritual message, turned into a political message.
Now, does spirituality help your conscience? In which case, your conscience becomes that kind of a guard that tells you, hey, this is not right. This is good.
It guides you. And when you allow it to guide you, then it guides your utterances. When we are on air like this, we must recognize the power we control. To the young men and women watching this show, to the young would-be politicians watching this show, they must be asking themselves, I like the way Alex sounds. So because I like the way Alex sounds, and Alex said this, it must be right. And this is a responsibility. I remember we had a prayer session that was organized. The first time the ICC suspects came home, and there was a big rally at Uhuru Park. And I saw the leaders failing to see the opportunity God presents at every turn. The Creator gives opportunity and we never see it. That was an excellent...
What was the opportunity?
The opportunity was to sell a peaceful agenda at that meeting. The opportunity was to demystify ICC to that support base. The opportunity was to map a way forward for the country on a peace platform. They keep missing. Our leaders keep missing that. I've seen prayer meetings around the country, and I have seen extremely gifted, talented leaders like William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, but they seem to miss the boat. This opportunity, those masses that come there, is a golden opportunity. And this is how God works. He gives you chances and chances and chances.
And it's dawning on me, or rather, if I'm with you where you are, and if I'm with Eddie where he is, then it looks to me like the campaign we should be having is family values, building character, and then as a result of building character, we'll have integrity, and then good leadership.
It's in that...
Are you on the same page?
It's on the same page. And as far as I'm concerned, if we allow ourselves as a nation to just, audit, you sit and audit yourself and say, what responsibility do I have? You remember at the end of the last show, we talked about responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility. Those of us who sat at home and watched on TV and went back to our businesses and said, that happened in the rift. Then, we leave it alone.
It was by omission.
And what happens is then that's how you look at the newspaper.
So we are all, when it comes to peace issues, we either commit to work hard, or we omit to work hard, and we suffer the consequences.
We become victims, or we become perpetrators by omission.
Or commission.
And not commission.
Okay, that's the last one. Thank you so much, Ndolo. That was our show on peace. Yes, we can on peace. I'm your host, Alex Toom. And until next time, I wish you all the best, but peace.